Now, Angela Rayner has announced plans to create new Milton Keynes-style towns across the country. The Labour Deputy Leader and Shadow Housing Secretary said that creating new towns was a key part of her party's plan to build 1.5 million homes over 5 years. But are new urban centres, as Labour are describing them, the answer to the lack of affordable homes? Or should they be spread across the towns and cities that we already have? Don, what do you think? I mean, we talk about the housing crisis all the time. People say they want new homes. This is what Labour are saying. Is it the best plan?
Aside being very tempted to take the mickey out of Angela Two Homes Rayner about wanting to build new homes, look, I mean, we're in the run-up to a general election. She could tell me blue was green and I would have to go and check, to be honest with you. What I want to know is, how is this going to happen? When is it going to happen? How are you going to afford it? Who's going to do it? I mean, where is the detail in this? But I mean, the important point here is we have a lot of empty properties in towns. I think we should be making use of those. Keir Starmer has already said that he's more than happy to build on Greenbelt. Again, what he actually means by Greenbelt is a little unclear. But I just think, again, with everything I'm being promised at the moment, I just don't believe a word any of them are saying. This sounds great. We need new homes. We youngsters are struggling to get on the housing market. We know that. We need new homes. We need them built fast. But this saying, yeah, we're going to build loads of new homes. We're going to have a few new towns. Where? How? When? Who's building them? Give me the detail.
Does it actually sound great? I mean, what we have is a lot of young people that are looking for properties to buy. Do young people want to buy in new towns? Don't they want to be somewhere where the jobs are?
Well, maybe. I mean, if people were given the option, at least at the moment, they've got no option, which is why they're going back to their parents' house at the age of 30 and 40. I mean, let's remember there are lots of new towns which probably before they were built were kind of poo-pooed. You know, the idea was, oh, well, what on earth is this? But, you know, Milton Keynes, I mean, I've been there, it's not bad. Stevenage, Welwyn Garden City, you might not want to live there, but, you know, I mean, you've got to think about places which are near existing infrastructure, near the M1, the M6, parts of the country which are not necessarily overcrowded, but which are not too far away from major urban centres like in, you know, the West Midlands or Nottinghamshire. There's some of the areas which I think they're targeting parts of Cheshire, you know, like Hale, an overspill town, you know, in Cheshire. There are possibilities, but we cannot carry on with the way we've been going. You know, it's like in our previous debates, I mean, if we need to be building at least 300 to 500,000 houses every year, greyfield sites, I'd never heard of that until
Grey's a new one.
and brownfield sites, but they're not cutting it. And if you want to increase the capacity in an existing town, then you get the NIMBYism, because people say, well, we're full up already, we don't want any further houses on our own developments, so sorry. OK, in that case, build it from scratch somewhere else.
Well, Keir Starmer says that he's a YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. Unfortunately, there isn't a huge amount out there. Actually, in Labour's plans, this could get around that problem if they're building completely new towns elsewhere. It won't necessarily be in anyone's or a lot of people's back garden.
It's not in Keir Starmer's backyard, is it? It's got a posh house in Islington, in North London.
I know you're not a lot of room there, no, not at all. But does it also take away the issue of putting too much pressure on existing infrastructure? Because actually, if you're going to start a new town, you're going to put pressure on the developers there to build the infrastructure needed.
So the problem we have at the moment is new housing estates are being built, not enough, not fast enough, but they are not building the infrastructure that goes with it. And this is where, again, the devil is in the detail. You need schools, you need hospitals, you need transport systems, you need all of this infrastructure put into place. It's all very well saying, oh, we're going to build loads of new houses, loads of new towns. But you've also got to fill these problems as well. And you do get people that are moving into these new housing estates, great. But there's nowhere for the kids to go to school. You can't get a dentist, you can't get a doctor's because they haven't included that in the system. Again, I keep coming back to the fact that I'll believe it when I see it.
Not to mention the sewage networks being under a little bit more pressure. But I suppose, Henry, when we look at these sorts of new towns, we start to look at who would move out there. Maybe it's a good idea in order to start, like, maybe a retirement town, and then we have older people moving out of towns in the city centre.
I'm determined to get super
and young people would be able to buy them. That could be a good idea.
It might be. It all depends on how desirable you make it, what the environment's like. You know, there's these new eco-towns that people are talking about. If people can get to and from the main urban centres, if they want those, that possibility, then it would be much more attractive than currently. And also, remember, look what they're doing in the States, with Biden, with the infrastructure bill. We could have something similar. We keep going on about this anemic growth. We want more, what did Liz Truss say? Growth, growth, growth.
Yes.
All right, well, what better way of stimulating growth than a new town with the infrastructure and all the paraphernalia that requires? It's huge numbers of jobs.
But I feel like when I read the policy by Labour, they were basically saying that developers that want to come in to create these affordable homes, to create this, will have to put the infrastructure in. And I was just reading it thinking, developers are barely making a profit on affordable housing as it is. That's why we're struggling to build as many as we need. And now you're asking them to add on to that the infrastructure needed to start a new town. How realistic is this policy actually?
Going back to our first debate, Storm, they're struggling to recruit the scaffolders, the builders, the plumbers, the bricklayers. We've got a shortage in those industries.
There'll be a premium on those jobs and there'll be a premium on those salaries. And if it means flipping and reversing what the government has said for the past year or so and on these visas, then perhaps we're going to have to let some of these people in on an emergency basis, or if Labour get into power, they can completely change it.
Introduce the apprentice system, pay people a decent wage for a decent job, get them learning the
If
trade.
people don't desire the work, if people want to do that work, because bricky work, as you know, I don't know if you've done any bricky work.
Yeah,
a little bit, back in the
I'm
day.
very good with it.
It's not easy.
No, it's not, and it is very skilled. I thought I tried it once. I was not very good at it. A few messages on here. Do give us a call, though. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Would you like one of these new towns near you? David on Facebook says that what we need is a building project that focuses on social housing on a similar scale to which they implemented in the 1950s after the war. Lots of people actually calling for more social housing, not affordable housing, not private housing, but actually social housing. Maybe this is focusing in on the wrong thing. Maybe we need to build hundreds of thousands of social houses.
I think there needs to be a mix. I don't think you create a ghetto of just social housing. I think it needs to be affordable housing. I think it needs to include social housing. And I think it also needs to include ordinary housing, private housing that people would buy normally.
But if it's social housing, that starts to sound like the government's going to have to put their hands in their pocket. Kim on Facebook says, sounds okay in principle. We have a shortage and something needs to be done. But where are they going to build them? Well, that is the big question. And it doesn't sound like we'll be getting an answer to that until and if Labour takes control of the government. Martin from Flintshire, would you like one of these new towns near you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind because of the simple truth. People need to live. I mean, there are many properties, shops and other properties that are boarded up and empty. But, it's okay, the government selling off council properties, but they're not replacing them. I mean, I live in a 3-bedroom, I'm disabled, but I live in a 3-bedroom property, which is way, way too big for me. But, I'm grateful that I've got a roof over my head. But the thing is, there are no properties for single people like myself. Now, it's okay the government then selling on council properties, but they're not replacing them. They have to replace them.
Yeah, well, that's what one of our earlier messages said. But you would be building social houses in the existing towns and cities. You wouldn't be starting a new town of just social houses, would you, Martin?
No, but yes, I understand, and I love to see green areas in the town. But having said that, people need somewhere to live.
Yeah, yeah.
And my point is, it's okay selling these properties, but we have to replace them. So it's all right saying where we're going to replace them. There's
Martin,
free ground.
We're going to have to wrap up there, and you're not the last person that's going to say that to us. They need to start building more council houses. A huge thank you to my wonderful panel.